I received a reply to my video that Israel is dangerous to the Jews. And my argument was that Israel is not a democracy. It cannot be a democracy. You cannot have a Jewish democracy. It's an oxymoron. And factually speaking, uh, more Israelis, Jews, died in Israel than any other place in the world. And that's just a fact because of a concept of the Jewish state and because of the conflict involving a Jewish state. In other words, more Jews died, even if you count anti Semitism or terrorism or whatever. Along those lines, more Jews died by far, even proportionately, in Israel than any other state in the world. So I received a reply from this gentleman by the name of Eyal, and he raises uh, four issues, four objections. First, he says that he disagreed with my video. He said that Israel became a country or started to become a country even before World War II. His second argument is that a Jewish state is a solution for the national religious aspiration of the Jewish people. And his third argument is that the over 23,000 people that I mentioned who have been killed, they provide protection not only to the Jews in Israel, but to Jews all over the world. And his fourth argument is that Israel prevents assimilation. So let me respond to these arguments one by one. First, that Israel started to be a state, or that they were trying to create a state before World War II. Before World War II, there were Jews living in Palestine, um, and there were immigrants coming from Russia, mostly from Russia, who were trying to build a state. That's true. However, uh, they were very few and far between. They did not have the political and the military power that the Jewish establishment had after World War II. Because of World War II, which I believe ended in 1945, so and during World War II, from 1933 until 1945, many Jews immigrated to Palestine. So the whole nature of a Jewish state or a future Jewish state changed tremendously because of World War II. Uh, so I'm not arguing that Jews do not have um, affiliation or aspiration to live in Palestine. That's not my argument, or in Israel. My argument is that they should have built a a democracy, a secular democracy that would respect the people that are already living there. And that would be the Palestinians, the Muslims, the Christians, and the Jews who are already living there. That's my whole argument. I am not against Jews living in Palestine. My argument is that they should have created a democracy. And this gentleman does not mention anything about the mistake of not making a democracy. His second argument is that a Jewish state is a solution for the national religious aspiration of the Jewish people. Um, so here we have to break it down because the Jewish people, like I said, they are entitled to live in Palestine or in Israel. There's no question about it. But what does it mean, the aspiration of the Jewish people? Is it to live in a fortress, to be isolated and insulated, and to be enemies of, of non-Jews forever? Is that, I mean, I can see someone religiously say, "I want to live next to a religious site because it gives me uh, uh, fulfillment. I feel like I'm fulfilling my religious obligation." That's fine, but is something else to say we need to be enemies of someone else. Well, you can live in peace with the Palestinians. You can live in a democracy with the Palestinians. That goes to the essence of my argument, and I think that he completely misunderstood or failed to understand what I am arguing. I'm arguing you could have a democracy, you can have religious fulfillment, religious access to everyone. You don't need to have an exclusivity. You don't need to be the owner, so to speak, even though I don't think, uh, and to be able to prevent others. See, a democracy provides access and equality to everyone. We do not live in a biblical era where, in those times, they didn't understand the concept of democracy. There was a concept of control in those days. And that was the entire point of view in those days of the people who were living there. That we need to be in control or we will be removed completely. We will be annihilated completely. Well, the Greeks developed the concept of democracy. And the concept of democracy says that everyone, under uh, certain principles of democratic principle, of secular principles, could have option to practice his religion or not to practice at all. And what I am saying is that a Jewish state fails um, to use those principles, and it's basically taking us back to the biblical era, and that means being in a war forever. His other argument is that 23,000 people that I pointed, it's actually over 23,000 people that were killed, Jews that were killed and um, in the conflict, provide protection to the Jews worldwide. And I think here he is confusing uh, causation with correlation. It is true that since 1948, uh, Jews did not suffer major anti Semitic events of a major proportion anywhere around the world except in Israel. But we're talking about, he's arguing that the Jews, that the Israeli, that the people who died in the war in Israel uh, provide protection to the Jews somewhere else. And I'll take that because I heard that argument many times. Many Israelis argue that Israel having a strong military um, provides protection to the Jews all over the world. So here he's saying that the 23 people who died provide protection. And I am taking it further, his argument, which is that Israel having a strong army or strong military provides protection. And I think that that argument uh, confuses uh, correlation with causation. And what do I mean by that? There are probably around between 6 million people, 7 million Jews living around the world. Most of them live in democracies, most of them in the United States, in Canada, in Europe, um, in South Africa, Australia, and they did not suffer any. Of course, they didn't suffer a Holocaust, but they didn't suffer any um, major anti-Semitic event. Not 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 in the 23,000. Not even maybe maybe in the hundreds. I'm not expert on that, but so so the question is, he's arguing, well, they didn't die. There was no Holocaust in those countries. That's because of our Israeli military. That's because of Israeli Jews were killed. Well, in those countries that I mentioned, all the democracies, there were other minorities too. There were um, African Americans, um, Chinese, Vietnamese, Mexicans, Filipinos, um, Muslims, uh, many minorities. And there is no difference in the anti those minorities killing in those countries than there are of Jews. In other words, the minorities in all these secular democracies that I mentioned did not suffer major hatred. In fact, even African Americans who suffered tremendous amount of hatred and racism before 1948, a lot of lynching, the amount of their um, um, racist killing went down as well. So, are all these people suffer less um, anti-immigrants um, killing or trauma or any other difficult situations because of the 23,000 Jews that were killed? Did any of them, is the Israeli army protects all of those minorities? The answer is clearly not. There is no correlation. There is no causation between those and the um, lack of anti-Semitism in those countries. And the reason there is much less anti-Semitism is because the world understood that minorities are citizens and they are entitled to equality. They're entitled to equal protection. They are entitled to be um, in the same protection as the majority. There is no uh, connection between the Israeli army and the fact that Jews in America are safe. The Jews in America are safe is because it's a country of laws. It's a country that has a constitution. It's a country that um, that actively engages in the reduction of hatred, and Jews in America flourish. Flourish economically, culturally, um, in all aspects. But they also live in safety. They didn't die. And that has nothing to do with the Israeli army. It has to do with America, with the civil rights in America, with the laws of America. It's a country of laws, it's a country that insists that everyone is equal. Now, of course, it's not always everyone is equal. You know, we saw that with many killing of African American with George Floyd. But America is consciously fighting discrimination and fighting that aspect of of racial discrimination against other people. Um, the other argument that this person Eyal is making is that uh, Israel prevents assimilation. In other words, what he's referring to is that there is much more assimilation in America than there is in Israel. I agree. Because Israel is a Jewish country, and most of the people in Israel are Jews, so therefore they tend to marry Jews. There's no question about it. But is this was Israel created to avoid assimilation? Is it Israel was created to give safety to the Jews? It was not created to avoid assimilation. It was not created to have Jews marry Jews. And by the way, um, the Jews in Israel, most of them are secular. They don't obey Jewish laws. You go on a Sabbath in Israel, you'll see the beaches are full, the freeways are full. They are not obeying Jewish laws. They don't eat kosher, most of them. So to have an argument that says, well, it was worth it to have 23,000 people killed in order to avoid assimilation, in my opinion, is preposterous. But to take that argument even further, Israel, the 23,000 that have been killed to supposedly protect all these values that Eyal is referring to, that's not the end of the game. It's not over. It's not like Israel says, okay, now we won, everyone agrees with us, no more wars. No, it's only the beginning. Israel does not have a formula for peace. Israel is not able to eliminate the friction, the strong friction that it has with the Palestinians, does not able to eliminate the occupation and apartheid. And it has more dangerous threats, especially with Iran talking about a nuclear power. This is why Israel is also has nuclear powers, nuclear bombs. I, I heard anywhere from several dozens to many hundreds. And it's trying to prevent Iran from having a nuclear power as well, in order to prevent Iran, because Iran is threatening Israel, and it has wars with Lebanon, with Hezbollah, with Syria, and with Hamas. We just saw that ended last night. and they don't have a formula to end this. So my question to Eyal is, how much is it worth? How many people is it worth to die in order to preserve a Jewish state? In other words, the other question is, at what point would you say, well, look, it's not worth it anymore? It's not worth it anymore. Is there any point? Is it another 5,000, 10,000, 100,000? That's what I would like to know. Because if you do not have that answer and it's not being answered by the population or by its leaders, then you don't really have a reply, an honest reply to what I'm saying, that a Jewish state is a mistake, that a Jewish state does not provide um, safety and security to the Jews, and that we need to create a common government, which is my formula, to create a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine together. And the reason I say to create a common government is because I don't think that it is possible to dismantle the Israeli government. I don't think that it's possible to dismantle the Palestinian governments, the Hamas government and the PA. But there has to be a formula for peace. And I don't recall if in the video that he responded to I spoke about my formula for peace. But I would have liked to hear his or any other of you guys responding to what's wrong with having a common government that will work together with the Israeli and the Palestinian government and will pass laws and will give the Israeli government and the Palestinian government a veto power. In other words, from what I hear from Eyal, he my interpretation of what he's saying is that in order to avoid assimilation, in order to maintain a Jewish state, we Israel constantly needs to be in a war because peace is a threat. Because if we have peace, then Israelis and Palestinians will meet each other. They live together. They will meet each other. They're going to marry each other. They're going to have Muslims and Jews and Christians marrying each other. So, based on what Eyal is saying, I think what he's saying is very, very telling that in the subconscious of Israelis, especially those who are very supportive of a Jewish state, they see peace as a threat to the Jewish identity. And because of that, the war needs to continue in perpetuity in order to avoid assimilation, in order to maintain the Jewish identity. And I think that that kind of notion is very dangerous. It's dangerous to the Jews. It's dangerous to the Palestinians. It's dangerous to young people and old people. So, and I don't think, by the way, that there was a discussion about that in the Israeli Knesset or the Israeli government or when it was designed as a Jewish state. I think that the concept of a Jewish state was a gut feeling reaction. It was more instinctive than a real theory that was considered and what was the pro and con versus creating a secular democracy. So I hope you share this and like the channel or whatever it needs to be done to help this channel. And I'll record more videos. Thank you so much. Bye bye.